Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In episode 5 of our tax tips and investing series, we're going to run through some important tax tips to get a better refund, lower your taxes owing, and avoid penalties when you file your taxes this year. For any topics that we cover today, any relating information, forms, or websites will all be linked in the description of this video. Now before we dive in today, there are ways to get your taxes prepared for you for free. Every year, the Canada Revenue Agency coordinates community tax clinics where you can work with a volunteer who will file your taxes for you. So, if you're a senior, a student, a newcomer, whatever the case may be, and your tax situation is relatively simple, we just want you to be aware that there is a free service out there available to you. Now let's get started on some tax tips and updates for this year. First up, and probably the most impactful, is real estate. Over the course of the last few years, many people in this country bought and sold property during COVID, as employment requirements tended to change. Did you know, though, that you're required to notify CRA when you sell your home? In fact, if you don't and CRA finds out, they can then charge you capital gains tax on your primary residence, which is usually tax-free. This came into effect in 2016, so that means if you sold your primary residence at any time during that year or later, you need to have filed the appropriate forms with your tax return. If you don't do this, not only can the sale be considered a capital gain and become taxable, but there are additional penalties that also go along with that. Next up are changes to the Climate Action Incentive. If you're not familiar with this credit, the idea behind it is to refund taxpayers some of the pollution pricing that the government charges over the course of the year. Now, this credit is for individuals residing in either Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or Ontario. You also need to meet the following criteria to be eligible for it. The amounts of the payments haven't been confirmed quite yet, but this is how much we would have gotten in full last year depending on the province you would have lived in. Now, in previous years, this was something you got along with your tax return. So, if you're entitled to a refund, you would receive the Climate Action Incentive 2 weeks after the time you filed. Or if you owed taxes, it would help to lower your taxes owing. This year, though, is a little bit different. This credit will instead be paid in installments through the benefit system, similar to how the GST credit works, which means you won't be getting it up front when you file your taxes anymore. Instead, the first quarterly payment will be paid out in July. One tip to keep in mind here is if you live in a rural area, you might actually qualify for more than what the normal credit is. But there's a catch. CRA will not pay you the bigger credit based on your address alone. You actually need to request it when you file your tax return. If you're not sure whether or not you qualify for the larger amount, you can go onto CRA's website, as you can see here, and a map will pop up. You can then search for your municipality. If you're located in the area that's shaded, you don't qualify. If you're located outside of that area, you do qualify. Next up are increases to the Canada Child Benefit. If you live in Canada, the government has financial programs in place to help support families who are raising children, and the monthly payments that you can get will be going up again this year. Here's the maximum amount that you can qualify for per month for each child that you have. Now let's take a look at RRSPs and tax-free savings accounts. Here's the RRSP limit for the 2021 tax year. So this limit will apply to the deposits you made from March 1st of 2021 up to and including March 1st of this year. For the 2022 tax year, here is the new limit. Now this limit will apply to the deposits you make between March 2nd of this year up to and including March 1st of 2023. Keep in mind, RRSP limits are impacted by a few things: how much you earn, any unused deduction room or contributions from previous years, and whether or not you pay into a pension. And these are just a few items that will impact your personal limit. So you're going to want to refer to your Notice of Assessment or your online CRA account to confirm your personal limit. This is especially important to those of you that are new to Canada or any individual starting their very first job this year. Since your limit is based on what you made in Canada in the previous year, you likely don't have any RRSP room yet. So be especially cautious if your employer has a matching RRSP program. They don't know what your RRSP limit is, and you may end up signing up for an RRSP account through work when you don't have any available room yet. For the tax-free savings account, new contribution room remains the same at $6,000 this year. Keep in mind, just like RSPs, your personal limit could be different. It changes based on your own deposits, withdrawals, and for some of you, even your age. We get so many questions about TFSA limits, so we'll be posting another video shortly to walk you through some examples of how they work. Now let's get into the credits you may not know that you can apply for this year to help boost your tax return. First up is donations. Donating to a registered charity can not only impact the lives of those in need and help fund a cause you believe in, but you can also get credit for that donation on your tax return. Keep in mind though, not all donations are eligible. Unless it's a registered charity, those donations are not tax deductible. If you want to know whether or not you're donating to a charity that's eligible for a tax credit, verify whether or not they're registered with the Canada Revenue Agency. Political contributions. If you made a contribution to a registered federal or provincial political party, candidate, or electoral district riding association, you can claim credit for this on your tax return. For some, that can mean a tax credit worth over $600 this year. Now let's take a look at a tax credit for teachers. If you were employed as a teacher last year or an early childhood educator, you can claim up to $1,000 of teaching supplies that you had to purchase. Here are some examples of items that you can claim. On a $1,000 claim, that'll mean $250 in tax savings this year for you. Now we're going to get into some health and medical expenses that a lot of people don't even know that they can claim. First up is gluten-free foods. If you have diagnosed celiac disease, you can claim the difference in price when you have to buy gluten-free foods. So, as an example, let's say it normally costs you $4 to buy a loaf of bread, and a comparable gluten-free option is $6.50. That difference in price can be claimed on your tax return. Now, you do need to follow a couple of guidelines in order to qualify for this, and you want to hang on to all of your receipts throughout the year, just in case CRA asks for them. Next up is COVID-19 tests. If you were required to take a COVID-19 test this past year, like for those of you that had to travel, these can now be claimed on your tax return. Again, there are some guidelines to follow, but for many, this will be a very welcome tax credit on your return this year. Certificate fees. If you ever paid for a medical practitioner, like your doctor for example, to complete or provide information for a certificate, these can actually be claimed on your tax return as a medical expense. Like everything else, just make sure you hang on to your receipt from the medical office just in case CRA asks for it. And lastly, wigs. If you had to purchase a wig because of hair loss, with a prescription you can claim this on your tax return. Again, there are some requirements to follow, but just make sure you also keep a copy of your receipt just in case CRA asks for it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. We'll be releasing more tax-related videos for credits and benefits relating to specific provinces, so stay tuned for those. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.